Philadelphia Eagles select Devontae Smith, wide receiver, Alabama.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Party on Broad. It is Dives, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Today, we are breaking down the Philadelphia 76ers. And to help me do that, as always, he is Rob at Philly_Madness. What is up, Rob?
Just your average day as a miserable Philadelphia fan, pissed off at every team. You know, that's what it is, right? I mean, this is who we are. And I am so frustrated with everybody. I just want some good news. Like, I'm hoping while we're on the air, I get some at some point here from one of the other two squads that we're not talking about tonight. But what the hell? Let's get to it.
Let's do it. We've got a great guest here tonight. He is Trill Bro Dude of the You Know Ball podcast. Check him out. If you don't follow him on Twitter already and you love the Sixers, you're absolutely fucking doing it wrong. What's up, man? Thanks for
Yeah, thanks for having me, dude. I really appreciate it. Excited to talk Sixers. Hopefully we can bring up Rob's mood.
I would love it. I would love
it. This is like Norm Rob. Like, yeah. This is pretty
for the course.
No, it's all right. It's my dad's the same way. I get texts from my dad about the Sixers all the time. Unless it's about Maxey, it's usually something negative. So
yeah. There are definitely some positives about this Philadelphia 76ers. Before we get started, guys, like this video if you love the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle. We're going in deep on the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. And be sure to subscribe. Let's jump right in, guys. Let's start off with our first question of the night. Our overall impressions on the James Harden, Joel Embiid duo. I'm going to throw it to you, man. Trill Bro Dude. Lead us off, bro. What's your kind of, 8 games of James Harden now on the court with the Sixers? Floor is yours.
So if I had come on a week ago like we had originally planned, this would be the happiest podcast that I've probably ever done in my life. I probably would have been, singing the praises of everyone. Joel and Harden, even when they are on the court together, are incredibly efficient. They're incredibly effective. They're still winning their minutes outside of that disaster of a Nets game that we saw. Like you said, it's been 8 games so far. I think the pick and roll has been absolutely fantastic. It's been awesome to see what Harden can do for the offense, specifically in the half court with his passing and just his overall offensive ability as a driver, shooter, passer, playmaker. It's been great. I can't really complain about that end. The defense has been bad, really bad, since specifically the last few games. But, I'm not going to put that all on Harden and Embiid. I think Embiid's one of the best defenders in the NBA. I think Harden, while he does have his downfalls, he constantly falls asleep off of the ball. In general, he's not that much of a disaster on the defensive end like people want you to believe. Overall, I feel like it started about as good as it possibly could, and right now it is going okay. It's going well, but I think over the past few games, I've kind of had to adjust my expectations for what this team can do just based on, the last 3 or so games.
Love it, man. What about you, Rob? What's your general impressions right now?
I mean, my general impression of the two of them is I love it. You know what I mean? I think James Harden right now, and this is what happens when you join a team in the middle of the year, is trying to feel his way through it. I think he's not being selfish enough at times. I think there are times I want to see more selfishness from him, and that's okay. Maybe that's going to come with time. Like, not to say like when he passed. I mean, first of all, James Harden is a better passer than I ever imagined. Like, I watched James Harden from afar, but I don't think I ever keyed in on him. He sees the floor much better than I even realized. Trill's right. He's not the single worst defender in the world like people want to make it out to be. I know that everyone goes, oh, Kyrie cooked him. Well, Kyrie's got 40-some points at the half tonight. Kyrie's cooking everybody when he plays because he's trying to make a statement right now. So let's not, hang that over James Harden's head. Honestly, the issue with the team is not James and Joel Embiid. Yeah. It's everybody else. And now, Maxey had a couple bad games. He looked a little better last night. But It's everybody else, and we're going to talk about all that. But as for those two, I think as they just continue to gel over the next 16, 15 games, whatever's left, and I know there will be some off days and stuff like that. That's okay. When those two lock in, they are very hard to stop on the offensive end. So from that standpoint, I love it. Like, I'm not this guy saying, oh, we lost the trade. This sucks. Look at this. No, everything's, you got to set your expectations to the right place for the whole team and understand that those two guys alone are not going to do it on their own.
Yeah, from the eye test, I absolutely love it. I agree, Rob, wholeheartedly. 8 games, but when you break it down stat-wise, 8 games, 210 minutes, 125.2 offensive rating, 18.0 net rating, 8.2 plus minus. You look at these two guys getting to the free throw line. I think that is truly our best stand when it comes to making a playoff run. Since the James Harden trade, you've got 138 free throw attempts from Joel Embiid. That is number one. He's always number one. James Harden is tied for 7th with Ja Morant at 76. So when you got in a playoff series where these guys are playing bulk minutes here, and there's a lot of issues with the Sixers that we're going to be breaking down tonight, but that's my takeaway is the pick and roll duo works. That's what I was banging my head against the wall against that Magic game when they had one or two pick and roll plays in that first half. At the end of the day, what are we doing if we're not giving the ball and letting Joel Embiid and James Harden work off each other? We're seeing James Harden's impact on Matisse Thybulle. We're seeing his impact, especially cutting to the basket. Tyrese Maxey, getting him in transition, getting him going in the open court and thriving at getting to the rim. There's a lot of things that James Harden does well, and I agree, Trobro, dude, that he does. His offense at a point definitely is overwhelmingly better than his struggles there defensively. But I love it. I absolutely love it. I think these two come playoff time are going to be cooking. And let's roll on to we got a question here. What do we think about moving Maxey to the bench and bringing Joe into the lineup? Any quick thoughts on that, guys?
Well, Doc will never do that.
Never.
We don't even need to waste our time thinking about that. But I will say, I think that my thing I'm a big Isaiah Joe guy. I love Isaiah Joe. I don't think he's starter level good. I don't even know if he's rotation level good yet. He's still very young. He's going to figure some things out. If he can hit shots, it would be great. I would not move Maxey to the bench at all. I know that idea has kind of been thrown out there. Maybe have him be the spark plug, run the second units. You can still do that. If we have any chance in the playoffs, Tyrese Maxey needs to be playing at least 40 minutes a game. He's the 3rd best player on the team right now. And, the idea of putting a shooter with them, if anything, you would hope that, you could probably put Matisse Thybulle and bring him off the bench. But then that messes up your defense a little bit. Long story short, Maxey is going to take open shots. He's going to make open shots. He's become a good 3-point shooter. I would like to up his volume a little bit on that end. But as an overall offensive player, I think we've seen what the offense can look like when Harden, Maxey, and Embiid are all going at the same time. And holy shit, it is incredible. So I think we should lean into our strengths, which is our shot creation now that we have 4 shot creators in the starting lineup. And we should really lean into that offensive end and not really worry as much about, having a volume shooter on the court with them, especially a guy like Isaiah Joe, who I think should probably be towards the back end of the rotation anyway, maybe as an 8th or 9th man.
Yeah, I fully agree. You look at the loss against Denver. He did not play. He got some opportunity. He got some playing time recently, and I got to admit, it was disappointing. It didn't. The shots aren't falling. It wasn't clicking for Isaiah Joe like it really has.
However, Furkan Korkmaz got 60 games to show us he stinks.
Yeah.
Get one chance at it.
Doc got a Doc, man.
Well, I mean, look, that's listen, and and we'll talk about it later. I'm not as down on Doc as everybody else is, but that's not to say he's perfect, right? And one of the things, he's not going to do it. He's just, he likes his guys, and when he likes his guys, that's just what it is. But look, the only way you can move Max to the bench is if you have somebody to put in. Their bench is horrific. It's horrible. And the guys that you have to count on need to be able to do it nightly, and they're just not right now. And that's the frustrating thing. So look, you got to try something new. If you're Doc, you have to do something different. But I can't tell you what that is at this point.
Yeah. I look at it like you look at that Denver game. Bones Highland was my number 2 target for the Sixers last year's draft, man. Him next to Tyrese Maxey or of some sort would have been so nice, man. That was murder's row leading up to the Sixers pick, man. Just sucks. Just absolutely sucks. Let's roll on. What's our take on Tyrese Maxey? Go ahead, Trillbro, dude. What's your take on Tyrese Maxey? Because I feel like every single month or every other month, we're reassessing how good this guy can legitimately be. Go ahead, man.
I mean, I was extremely high on Maxey coming out of the draft. He was my number 1 target for the Sixers at 21 if he was available there. I was absolutely shocked to find out that he actually fell to us. I have always had high expectations for him, even as a rookie, when the majority of rookies in the NBA suck, let's be honest. Like, point guards, generally speaking, take about a year or 2 to really adjust. And we've seen the development not only in season last season, but in season this season. He came back better. The kid is a workhorse. He's an absolutely lightning scorer. He's become a elite knockdown shooter almost from 3. I mean, from the corners, it seems like the most automatic shot in basketball at this point. It's like if Maxey takes a corner 3, I'm pretty sure it's going in. So he has that off-ball effectiveness working off of Harden and Embiid. He's kind of that perfect complementary third guy in terms of really juicing the offense. And I mean, I think the next step in his game is pretty obvious. There are 2 major things that he can really work on, which are his just off the dribble creation. Like his handle, he still relies a lot on his just like straight line speed, like getting downhill, getting to the bucket, which is fine. But if you want to end up becoming a primary creator in the NBA, you need to work on your handle and get to the point where you can kind of manipulate the defense in the pick and roll. And coming with that, we'll lean into, making him into a better passer and playmaker. And defensively, he just needs to get better with, defense. He gets lost on screens a ton. A lot of that is due to his size. He can't navigate screens really well. He's going to get cooked in certain matchups, but he does play competitive defense, especially on smaller guys. Like my expectations for him coming into the NBA were like, I saw like if he hit his ceiling, maybe a guy who could make an all-star team or 2. At this point, if you look at the trajectory of his career and you compare it to some of the guys that were comped to him coming out, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, even if you want to go further, the Donovan Mitchell types, like they all were pretty much putting up the same stats as him at his age. And I think that you're talking about a guy who could potentially be a top 30, top 25 guy if he hits his ceiling and make multiple all-star teams in his career. I think the sky's the limit for the kid.
Full agree. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, look, you talk about the things you need to work on. The nice thing about a Tyrese Maxey is he's going to work on them. I mean, this kid is that's all he wants to do is work and be better, and the it factor. Not to mention this. If anyone is sitting here or anywhere else tells you they saw this leap in year 2 coming from Tyrese Maxey, I'm calling him a liar. I'm sorry. I don't know you from the next person, but I'm going to tell you that you're a liar because the leap he made this year is so impressive and so shocking to me. And, oh, by the way, this happened under what coaching? Oh, that's Doc Rivers' coaching staff. Okay. I just wanted to make sure because according you go on Twitter, Doc Rivers can't coach a basketball team. But keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as we get to that conversation later. But you just and what I love about listen, this kid is the anti-25. Okay, he's the anti-25. He's everything that you wanted 25 to be from a mentality standpoint. And nothing phases him. He has a couple bad games. He's still going to shoot the ball the next game, right? Like it's not like going to take him out of his game. And that's okay. He's 22, 21?
21, yeah.
Yeah, 21. He's going to have bad games. He's not going to come out and light it up for 25 every night. He's just not going to do it. But I've been thoroughly impressed. I do believe the sky is the limit for him. But it's not a matter of playing. People are missing that point. It's not a matter of playing him. It's a matter of the development of a player. And the development of a young player, whether you want to give the guy credit or not, goes to a coaching staff, right? They challenged him at the end of last year Doc brought him in and said, can you tell Joel no? Can you tell Joel Embiid no? That's a great coaching move. That's a great coaching move to go to a young player and ask him if he could tell the superstar no and say, that's what you need to do.
I would push back a little bit on that and just say I think that the majority, it's kind of what you're talking about with Ben Simmons. Like, the majority of guys who develop their games are working on their games religiously in the offseason. And I think because Tyrese Maxey has that work ethic, now maybe Doc planted the seeds and, gave him the confidence to get there. But like, ultimately, if you're working on your game, if you're working on your shot all offseason, like Ben refused to ever do, then the results that come from that, at least I would give the majority of the credit to his work ethic.
I agree with the work ethic. Totally. My point is that the coach, listen, at the NBA level, it's not the high school level. It's not the coach's job is not to make you a better, like, you have to have it in you, right? At the NBA level, these guys have to have it in them. That's why it's always funny. Like, people just totally don't understand how bad this bench is. This bench is woeful. I mean, it is bad. I feel like it's been bad for 10 years, the bench, but it is bad. And people are like, oh, well, it's da-da-da. Who can he go to? Name the guy that he could go to change things off the bench. You can't. But my point is just that, I think, well, we'll get to Doc later, but as far as Tyrese Maxey is concerned, we have a true basketball player that we're going to love watching here for years to come.
Yeah. And I'll argue it took Doc too long to make the adjustment because we were banging our heads to give the ball to Maxey way before this trade went down. And I give Doc credit for sitting Tobias down, although Tobias has played a little too much hero ball lately for my liking. But you look at Tyrese Maxey's per 36 minute numbers, they're kind of pretty close. Yeah, he took major leaps with his jump shooting, no question. Yes, there are still question marks with him defensively, but I think this is what this guy is, man. He is the third star of this team. There is no question about it. The per 36 minutes, points are nearly the same. Turnovers are down just a little bit. Assists are the same. Steals are the same. Free throw attempts are roughly the same. I think this guy is just a legit NBA player. And I think the jump shooting is where we kind of like scratch our head at, like, who is this guy exactly? I've kind of thrown some comparisons out in the past, like Tony Parker, just a highly efficient guard. We're kind of seeing him grow now under James Harden. We're seeing more of these step back 3-pointers. It's just so much fun, man. We're having a blast watching Maxey grow. And I think it's, like you said, man, I think it's the defensive side. We kind of have seen him get cooked a little bit defensively. But am I complaining? Absolutely not. Like, again, he's a 21-year-old. You look at his usage rate, turnover percentage down 10% from last year. The dude has played how many 40-minute games this season already? It's just terrific.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing with Maxey, especially when you talk about like the jump shooting, is like, I always believe he could become a good jump shooter because he was a really good free throw shooter. He had incredible touch on that floater in college. And some of the biggest indicators when coming into the NBA with these guys, you can't just look at their raw numbers and say, Maxey shot 29% from three, he'll never be a good shooter. Like, no, well, if you actually think about, the difficulty of shot he was taking, the larger sample of he's been a good shooter his entire high school career, and then all of a sudden he has a bad off year. Last year he doesn't have a great shooting season, and he's turned it around. And not only from 3-point, the mid-range too. Like, the mid-range was not nearly as his creation in the mid-range this season has been absolutely awesome. And he's hitting those pull-ups, he's getting to his spots, and he's just making everything work for him.
Yeah, when he learns how to shift gears just a little bit, when he learns how to find open guys around the rim just a little bit more, his ability to impact the game as a ball handler is just going to even get better and better and better because he has missed a lot of open guys. He does tend to kind of get that tunnel vision of attacking the rim, as he should. The guy is amazing at it. But, as a point guard, I think that's a different conversation. So
that's why we got Harden.
Absolutely, man. That's going to be a blast watching that guy grow with James Harden. Let's go to the concerns. Let's go to the other side. What are our concerns about the Sixers? What are their biggest needs? You're up, man. Trilbro, dude. What's your biggest concerns?
The obvious thing is that we can't defend anyone. I mean, our perimeter defense is very bad. I don't really know how else to put it other than, guys constantly blowing rotations, dying on screens. Teams are running off ball. Like, I look around the Eastern Conference and I go, there are certain teams that have always given us trouble due to matchup problems. The Celtics, perfect example. They have big wing scorers that we can't really match up with. I think the Nets are going to give us those kind of problems in the playoffs. I think we're a better team than Miami. I should just put it like that. I think we have better top end talent. It makes us better. But I do think that because Eric Spoelstra is such a good coach that he can run guys off screens, off movement, Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Tyler Hero, and he can basically make it so that Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, even Matisse Thybulle, who, is an elite defender, but he takes a lot of risks. He gambles a lot, and a lot of the defensive load falls onto Joel Embiid's shoulders. And when you're facing teams in the playoffs, especially teams that are focused on jump shooting like the Nets, it is difficult to, make Joel the entire center of the defense, because Joel, what he's great at is protecting the paint and the rim. And if teams are basically great from the mid-range, great from three, the Sixers are just going to struggle to defend them, and it's basically going to you got to hope every game turns into a shootout. So defensively, that was my biggest thing after the trade. Like, if you go back and you listen to my podcast that I guest appearance on, I was like, the offense is going to be fine. Do not worry about the offense. The math is on our side. These two guys get to the line it's on. We have enough shooting around them that they'll be able to figure it out, and we will be fine on that end. We have two elite offensive engines playing at the same time. When one of them sits, the other one can run the offense, vice versa. And ultimately, what the real issue with this team is that the perimeter defense is just not good. And if we do have to play Matisse Thybulle big minutes, that will hurt your offense. And ultimately, we don't have enough two-way guys besides the top end of this rotation for me to feel super confident about a 7-game playoff series against some really good playoff defenses, especially teams that have a lot of good jump shooting.
Dude, you just completely stole all of my notes. Yeah, for me, just to piggyback off of that, perimeter defense is my biggest concern with this team, especially against other top, athletic teams in the Eastern Conference that have length that can stymie our perimeter shooters. That is my concern. Even Jeff Green last night looked like a god. Running in the open court, man. I was like, what was that? We haven't seen that in quite some time. You look at
34.
You look at the Sixers transition defense. You look at them just not communicating, always slow, always 2 steps behind, getting back at the rim, just not rotating good enough. This team lacks athletes. This team lacks athletes at the wing position. That is the biggest thing I'll be scouting Thursday and Friday as we get watching March Madness. That's the biggest area of need. We've seen it over and over. It used to be guys that can dribble, penetrate, get to the lane, and finish. I think it's now perimeter defenders, and I think the blueprint is out. Teams are completely letting go of our corner 3-point shooters and just stacking the paint, and that is going to be an issue for sure in the postseason. What about you, Rob?
Well, I mean, you guys covered the defensive stuff, but I'm going to cover a couple different areas. One, Matisse Thybulle's a problem. And I mean this, look, I love the kid, but when the trade talks were blowing and Dibes, I was on this. To me, when you have guys like Joel and James who are going to attract a lot of attention, you need other guys to be able to knock down shots. Matisse can't do it. Tobias isn't doing it regularly enough. Off the bench, forget about it. Outside, George Niang will give you one great game, and then he'll go 2 for 10. I believe the offense. I know what Trill's saying, and I agree with him that you can score with Joel and James and but when these guys can collapse to the paint because they have, there were a few times it was Ben Simmons-like coverage on Matisse last night. And the difference is Matisse will shoot it. The problem is he don't make it. He just doesn't make it. Furkan Korkmaz can't shoot anymore. Shake Milton, once again, might give you a really good game. Then he's going to give you a really bad 3 games. George Niang hit the side of the backboard on the last shot last night. I mean, like, it's the bench is maddening. And what's maddening is you don't have any other option than to start the 5 guys you start, to play Matisse Thybulle, probably, in my opinion, more minutes than you need to. It's so hard for me to watch because I love the kid. I just really expected the offensive game to take just another notch. Like, I wasn't expecting him to come in and just be a lights out shooter. But I mean, he is just like, there's too many games where he's getting 0 or 2 points. There's too many of those games. Danny Green looks like he's just done, like the career's over. And he's a guy that his leadership is obviously valuable to this team. You saw that in the Atlanta series last year. But he can, I mean, how many games has he had 0 points this year? You know what I mean? Like, there are major players on this squad, whether it be starters or bench players, that are getting you 0 points in a game. I just don't know how you expect to win in the playoffs that way. It doesn't matter how great James and Joel are. It doesn't matter even if Tyrese is good with them. The starters scored 96 points last night. 96 points. You need 20 points from your bench and you win. And that should be a given. And I'll, even though he's a starter, I'll include Thybulle in that mix because he kind of fits that mold of these other guys. 20 points from all these other guys. And you didn't get it. You didn't get it. And that, if anyone wants to have a concern about this team, it's there. It's that I still don't think they, like, I really think Daryl Morey's going to need an offseason to build around James and Joel. And I hate to say it because I'm so tired of every year we say, well, just wait till next year. But we may have to start tossing that idea around that this may not be the year. Wait till they have an offseason to build around these two and get the shooters and the two-way guys, as you guys discussed, so that they can really formulate a good team. Because you play teams like the Nets. I mean, look, you could say what you want. The Nets are freaking loaded. Ben Simmons or no Ben Simmons, the Nets are freaking loaded. And it's going to be really difficult with the supporting cast that those two have.
Yeah. Let's roll on to our next question of the night. Doc Rivers. How would you grade Doc Rivers' performance at this point this season? What about you, True Bro, dude? What's your thought?
I mean, I've always said I think Doc is a good regular season coach. Like, I think that Doc will be fine. I think that guys, especially his first 2 or 3 years with the team, I think guys really buy into his message. I think that he's a good, like, 90% of being an NBA coach to me in the regular season is just like knowing how to manage the ego of players and guys in the locker room. And Doc's a former point guard. He's, it can drive me nuts with certain decisions that he makes. But overall, I do think that, to me, the major flaw of Doc Rivers as a coach is his stubbornness. And I think that in order to win in the NBA, in the modern NBA, you need to be incredibly not stubborn. And I overall, like, just because of the way that he handled the Ben Simmons situation, kept the team going. Like, we were really competitive in a lot of games, even when Joel was out. Like, I have to give him credit for all of that. I'd give him like a B or a B plus probably. We're still a top 3 seed. My thing with Doc is just I don't think he's ever going to be a good enough coach in the playoffs, because I think that in the playoffs you need a coach like Ty Lue. You need who I wanted the Sixers to hire. You need a coach like Nick Nurse, or someone who's just going to make adjustments on the fly and is going to be trying to throw shit at the wall and figure it out as he goes. And Doc has just kind of proven that he's not willing to do that in the playoffs. But regular season wise, he's fine. The only thing that like has been absolutely driving me nuts recently, like, I like the fact that he finally pulled Furkan. I like the fact that he's kind of told Tobias, like, and I think that ultimately, like, he should be giving everyone a shot these last 2 weeks of the season, including Furkan, including everyone who maybe is in the rotation or fell out of the rotation, to kind of prove that they can be a part of a playoff rotation at some point, because these games coming up are kind of meaningless anyway, except for seeding purposes. But the major thing with Doc with me is just, I was very upset when we signed DeAndre Jordan. I was incredibly upset when we got Paul Millsap in that trade. those guys suck now. Like, they had great careers. They're bad. Like, they're not going to be playoff players. They're just not. Like, we have a many-year sample size that proves that DeAndre Jordan is not the player he once was, and there's nothing that the Sixers are going to do to change that. And the fact that he didn't even give Charles Bassey or Willie Cauley-Stein or Paul Reed a shot to prove that they could be an effective backup center with James Harden is frustrating to me, because I think a guy who was really all in on this season and wanted to win this season would have given those guys an opportunity. And part of this is Daryl Morey is to blame too, because he's the one who actually acquired those guys. So yeah, overall on the season, I'd give Doc like a B or a B plus for his coaching job, but I just don't think he's a good playoff coach. I think that he's proven it over and over. He's blown the most 3-1 leads of any coach in NBA history because of the lack of adjustments. And I think that this will, if the Sixers flame out, let's say they get the Nets in the first round and they lose, or they lose to Miami in the second round, I think that Doc Rivers will probably not be coaching the team next year, because I think that there will be pressure from ownership on after last year and then the trade this year. And when there's pressure on a GM, he will fire the coach. So there you go.
Bam! Well said, man. Well said. Absolutely crushed that. What about you, Rob?
So, let's focus on the big and the small picture. The big picture is, I don't think this owner pressures anybody, because I don't think this owner gives a damn. I'm flat out. I don't think Josh Harris, Josh Harris hired Daryl Morey, so he doesn't have to pay attention. I mean, I firmly believe that. Like, he could show up and sit courtside all he wants. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't think Doc's going anywhere this year. Flat out don't. And part of it is because of how you started out. Think about this season. You got a star max player who refuses to play. You got another max player who just is like invisible for most of the season. You have COVID run rampant through your team at the beginning of the season, where you lose Joel Embiid for almost 3 weeks. And here we sit, 17 games left, as the 3 seed in a challenging Eastern Conference. It's not like the Eastern Conference is the pushover conference anymore, right? And not only that, you've beaten Chicago 3 times. You've beaten the Cavaliers. You beat the Bucks with no James Harden in the last game on the road before the All-Star break. You've won, so you have some quality wins. I am not here to tell you that Doc Rivers is a perfect coach, because he's not. And all the fears in the playoffs are all real, and I agree with you. But I'll say this. We in this town are too quick to run guys out when it comes to coaches. Every time you do that, that's a start over. That's a reboot. And when you have guys that you don't know how long the window is, a la Joel Embiid, because let's face it, everything's been gold in the last couple of years, right? But we don't know how long that's going to last. I can't just keep, all right, well, now new coach, new system. Like, there has to be some continuity. And I don't think after a half a season with James, you get rid of Doc. I think you allow them to build around them, and you give him next season as a full season with those 2 guys before you make that move. But, look, you said it, Trill. He's a great regular season coach. You're not top 10 in wins as all time. If you don't know the game of basketball, he was a point guard in the league. He knows how to lead men. There's no doubt about that. Like, I don't think there's very many players in that locker room that don't like their coach, who think their coach is the problem. And honestly, I feel like I'm back. Guys, I feel like it's deja vu, and I'm back defending Brett Brown again, because I'm like, I just think it's too soon to go down that road. I think you got to give him a full year with the James Joel trio, or trio if you include Maxey, before you make that decision. As far as this, because of everything we talked about, I'm right there. I think it's been a B or B plus year. I just wish he was better. I wish he'd give Furkan 68 games. And by the way, I think what you'll see over the next 16 is he is going to say, hey, Furkan, here's your opportunity to get back. Shake, here's your opportunity to get back in the rotation more. Niang, here's your opportunity to stay there. He's going to give these guys an opportunity, because something has to change, and you got to find it in these next 16 games.
So, yeah, I'm much lower. I'm in that C plus range. I give him a lot of credit. The Sixers have definitely showed up against some of the better teams this season, no doubt about it. my question to you guys, real quick: who is more responsible for Tyrese Maxey's rise this year? Is it Doc Rivers or is it Sam Cassell? Any thoughts on that, guys?
I mean, it's always tough because obviously the assistant coaches are more hands-on in a practice. I feel like, in the NBA, but I think Sam is coaching Tyrese as a part of what Doc wants him to do, if that makes sense. Like, Sam came here with Doc. Sam obviously likes to coach with Doc. So I think that there's a correlation between the two. Hands-on, yeah, Sam Cassell probably is more hands-on because, frankly, at the NBA level, I just feel like any assistant is more hands-on than the head coach. But I'll go back to what Trill said earlier. I think a lot of what you're seeing is from Tyrese Maxey himself. I think he was just a gym rat all off season. But, like the people going right now, oh, well, you have to fire Doc and let Sam coach the rest of the year. They're the 3rd seed in the East, guys. There will be no in-season coaching change. It's not happening.
Yeah. All right, let's roll on to our next question. Last question of the night. How far do you think the Sixers will go in this year's playoffs? Trill, bro, dude, you're up.
Oh boy. Went on a podcast a few weeks ago after the first two games of the Harden and Embiid era, and I predicted conference finals. I still think that they have a shot at that. I still think that they have a shot to make a run to make the finals. I think that if those two, prove their eliteness in the playoffs, once again, kind of going back to what Rob said, I do have my concerns about set playoff defenses when, there are 4 guys in the paint because they don't have to pay attention to Matisse, and they're not worried about Tobias shooting because he's been a hesitant shooter, and Maxey's really the only floor spacer. I am a little bit concerned about that, to be honest. I think that my bigger concern is on the defensive end, and it's all matchup based, but I look at every matchup in the Eastern Conference, and I hate the Celtics matchup. I hate the Nets matchup. And I think that there's a possibility that Milwaukee and Miami can just be better than us in a series and beat us. I think that I think they both have the coaching advantage. I think that they both have the defensive advantage. And I think that those things, and possibly the shooting advantage, depending on, if our shooters want to show up for that series. Once again, the athleticism, it concerns me a lot. I think I would, if I had to put money on it, I would still say I think that this team as it is currently constructed, I've always said it. I think next year is the year once you can get off the Tobias contract. You can rebuild the team around the 3 guys that you have. Probably Niang is the only other guy because he's on such a cheap contract that is incredibly safe. And then maybe some of the other guys on rookie scale deals. So I think next year is really the year that they will make like the push to make like a finals team. But for this year, I think that if I had to put money on it, I would say a tough second round out again, but against a much better team than the Atlanta Hawks. So I'd probably say like 7 against Milwaukee or Miami or one of those teams. Although I do like our chances against Miami a little bit more. But I think we'd probably lose to Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and possibly Boston.
Yeah. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I think as long as the Nets are not your first round matchup, you'll get out of the first round. I do believe that. I agree. Boston makes me worried. I just wonder over 7 games. I still kind of give the Sixers a slight edge just because of Joel Embiid and what are they going to do? Like, they're going to have to really run a lot of guys at Joel Embiid because they don't have that just stopper on that roster. But the second round is going to be tough because it may be a Milwaukee. And Milwaukee is the team that worries me outside of the Nets. Milwaukee, who's worries me the most. And then, Miami will always worry me. I agree. I think from having the top 2 guys, you have the better team. But Spoelstra knows how to guard Joel. Has done it very, very well in his career. And Spoelstra will implement that zone. And if they can't beat the zone, which you need shooters really to do that outside of those 2. And I just don't – the depth's not there. And it's not just bench depth. It's Tobias is not what you want him to be. Matisse is not the shooter you need him to be. Then Danny. And it's just – I just don't know how it's there to get out of the second round this year. I really don't. And no one wants to hear that. And people are going, oh, my God, it's going to be – honestly, like I may have to just tune out because it's going to be Brett Brown 2.0. Everyone is going to be calling for Doc's head. No matter if that series goes 7 and they lose on a quadruple doink again, everyone is going to be calling for Doc's head. And I don't think it's going to happen because, like we said, I think when they can get out of the Tobias contract, give Doc 1 year with a team built around James and Joel for a full season. So I think, I'm sorry, guys, I think it's a second round exit again.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I think you're going to get by Joel Embiid and James Harden feasting at the free throw line in round 1. But when it comes down to it, I don't know how much our shooters will be able to survive, outlast in round 2 against teams that are much more athletic that we've seen. And, you know, there's a lot of data to support the Sixers shooter struggles against length. And that is definitely the biggest concern. Pretty much what we've talked about all night long. All right, let's wrap it up, man. Bro Dude, You Know Ball podcast. Where can we find you, man? What do you got going on over there?
So you can find me on Twitter at TrillBroDude, like you said. You Know Ball is the podcast. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're everywhere. And we just launched a YouTube channel, so you can check that out as well.
Love it, love it, love it. Guys, go check it out, guys. Again, if you're not following this man, you're doing it wrong. Rob, you're up, man.
At Philly_madness, you can find me bitching about the fact that the Phillies and Eagles just don't want to do anything. Or getting into arguments with Sixers fans, all the fun stuff. But then you can catch me here with Mr. Crockpot. We're talking Sixers. I'm sure the Eagles talk's going to be picking up here now as the draft approaches. So you catch me here on Party on Broad.
I just finished my positional rankings for the NFL draft. Legit, every position took me 3 months. But we're here, top 10 rankings, and I've got like 8 mock drafts out there. We're doing running back rankings with my guys, Shane and Mark on Thursday morning, and then we're doing Friday Eagles mocks, simulation mocks, and just reacting to those. And then, of course, March Madness is going down Thursday and Friday, and lots of content coming out with that. So follow my man Rob on Twitter at Philly_Madness. He is at TrillBroDude. Check out the You Know Ball podcast. So good. Thank you, everyone, for watching. For Rob, for my man, for myself, stay awesome, everyone.
Third down. Hurts keeps. Hurts cuts. Hurts has the first down. And Jalen Hurts. But it just pulled away for the Eagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles select Devontae Smith, wide receiver, Alabama.